Welcome to Leitner Laz.
Well, hi there.
Jimmy, how are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you. And you? You look
I'm
well.
good. I'm good. Sounds like a law firm downtown, Leitner and Laz.
Yeah. Yeah,
Excuse
I
me.
want to address that too, because alphabetically it should be Laz and Leitner.
No. No, Leitner and Laz.
Alphabetically, it should be Laz and Leitner.
I actually, and you know this to be the truth, I recommended that it was because I think Laz and Leitner flows better and is
No,
better.
no.
And it doesn't matter about egos or anything else.
You
And
don't you don't hide the lead, Ted. You don't hide the lead. It's Leitner and Laz.
yeah, I'm a leader.
Don't worry, I understand.
I'm a
Don't
leader,
forget.
all right.
I shared an office with you. I understand completely.
You know what they say about leadership in terms of dog sleds, and if you ain't the lead dog, the scenery never changes.
Well, it's funny because the scenery, whenever I shared an office with you, was an empty chair. You were so busy.
Chair and
you
a
were so
giant
busy
mound
with
of
radio and other TV hits, and I shared an office with your chair, and then occasionally you'd come in and gather some things and head back out and start talking again.
yeah. That's the shared instead of sharing an office, shared a chair. That's the line that Jerry Coleman, the Colonel, would always give me, and other people when they would say, "You really did room with Mickey Mantle, didn't you?" And Mickey would say, Jerry would say, "Well, it's not like that room with Mickey. I kind of room with his suitcase. That was all." Because Mickey was out in the early hours of the morning because every woman in New York loved Mickey Mantle, and Mickey was determined to love them back one by one, or 3 by 3, or 4 by 4, whatever it took. So, same thing.
Before we get into our rundown of things we need and want to talk about, I would like to talk about some of the you mentioned Jerry Coleman. What a terrific guy Jerry was. But some of the interesting people we've been able to interact with because we've been involved in sports, involved in broadcasting. When you think about it, I remember one time I was invited to do something with Joe DiMaggio.
No kidding.
And I said, well, wait a second. There are a lot of baseball announcers and people in town who probably are better suited for this. No, we want you. Okay. And so it was unbelievable.
You never told me the story. This is awesome.
Yeah. So what about you? You stumbled upon some things over the years.
I met a lot of amazing people, and I pinch myself every time because I just came from nothing, and we had a little apartment this big where you put the key in the door and broke a window in New York, and first in the Bronx and then in Yonkers in the suburbs, which was a really nice suburb then, not so much now. Now it's like a little Bronx, but that's why anything I got. A, to not have to shovel snow, B, to have a lawn and not the concrete jungle as they call it in the movie. And this was San Diego, California. And I was in awe and pinching myself, even if I didn't get successful, it was going to be a great place to live with nice people and nice neighbors and all that stuff. So my background, and then let alone to have success, and I've been a sun worshiper my entire life. And I would always, be out in the sun. I remember Jeff and Jer used to have a bit about that. I'm trying to remember exactly how they did it. And they would talk about my tan, that I was always tan.
Yes, you were.
And they would say that I used a sun lamp, which was not true. Never in my entire life. But their running bit in the studio several mornings was, Ted used a sun lamp. And so, and I was driving along. 2 times I did that. I was driving along and I heard them, and I was up early, which didn't happen often either, except to do my sports on Hudson and Bauer on AM while they were on FM. So I called in and said, hey, I've never in my life been in a tanning bed or used any of that. Remember that stuff, Jim, I think it was called Man-Tan?
Yeah.
In a bottle like mustard. It was just awful yellow stuff that they even advertised on television. I never bought it. I never used it, but it always continually ribbed me and teased me that I did that. The other thing was that they had asked their audience, have you ever told someone who you are? You know who I am? That kind of thing. Where ever heard a celebrity say, you know who I am? And some guy called in and said, I heard Ted Leitner say that at an appliance store one time. And he didn't say, do you know who I am? But he said to the guy, what's my price? As in, I was thinking, that really pissed me off.
You did do that.
So mad that, again, I was able to, and this was in the pre-cell phone days, but I was at that time when the cell phones and cars first came out, and I was endorsing Marvin K. Brown and
Great guy.
Dave Grunstrom, who was the manager there. Well, another great guy. My God, may he rest in peace.
Yes.
So Grunny was nice enough. It cost him $50 every time he changed cars with me, because I was I endorse them. I should be driving their cars, so I know what I'm talking about. And when I say it's a great car, I should drive it and be honest. And we were. And so with that, this same thing. So that was the deal. That what's my price? I'm a big shot. So I called on my car phone and I said, "Hey, Jerry, Jeff, this is nonsense. I never, on my mother's grave, I've never, ever said that to anyone." And asked that guy. That's all I got to call back in and say where he saw me do that and say where he heard me say that. And he said it was Eddie Aladre's A&A, which was down, I can't remember where it was, not quite Hillcrest, but somewhere in that area, University Avenue, whatever. I'm not good with locations. But I knew Eddie, and the truth is it's been closed for a couple of decades. But Eddie's A&A, and I bought an appliance, and Eddie had always told me, "Hey, I really like you on the air. Come, give me your business, and I'll give it to you wholesale. I'll give you a great price every single time." So I told Jeff and Jer, after that guy called in and said where he said he heard me say, "What's my price? You know who I am? I'm hot stuff. I'm this, that." And I said, "It's impossible. You can call Eddie," because I always had a deal there. I would have never had to ask. And Eddie waited on me every time and told me to ask for him. So nobody else could have been doing it, or I would have said, "What's my price?" And that really makes me mad. And I hated that, because you imagine if you say that, like a cop stops you and you're a so-called celebrity and you say, "You know who I am?" Because he's going to say, "No. And I don't give a shit who you are."
Or he'll say,
he should.
I know who you are, and you should have been going slower. So here's your ticket.
That's right. I really like your play-by-play, and I like you on Channel 8, and he's writing. One of those deals. And now the ticket's done. Here it is. I don't care who you are. And that's the way it should be. There should be no special privileges. Remember they had that video of Reese Witherspoon drunk in a skunk, and it's on the cop's camera, and it's recording her, and she's giving it that, and she's slurring her words and acting like a fool. She got stopped with her husband after a party or whatever, and she's saying to him, "You know who I am? You know who I am?" And she admitted later she was just mortified when she saw that video on YouTube and thought, "My God, how embarrassing. I'll never say anything like that again." And
let me make a request to everybody out there. Please don't drink and drive. I remember when I was young and stupid, and really young and stupid, I was stopped by a policeman in Detroit. I was with the Lions linebacker, and I was coming home from a bar, and he said, "You been drinking?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Guess what we're going to do?" I said, "Don't know." He said, "I'm going to drive you home," and he had a partner with him. He said, "And you're going to promise you're never going to drink again and drive." And I was so thankful that my dog is chiming in and barking and saying, "Why are you telling that story?"
Two barks means yes. That's exactly what it was. He was affirming what you're saying.
So please don't drink and drive. That's all.
I had it happen to me twice, back in the once in the 60s, once in the 70s. And thank God I learned before somebody, I don't care about me, somebody else was really hurt and died. So I look back, and it's almost like you break out in hives. You shiver thinking what could have been and how damn lucky you were.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
just scary. Just scary.
I got to tell you about the dog. My neighbor gives my dog treats when we walk out in the alley. I open the back gate, and his garage faces my garage. And so my dog can tell when the neighbor is out and wants the treats. I'll be right back. You keep talking, Ted. You're good at it.
Oh, another zig. Another zig.
I'll be right back.
He gave me another Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid. You keep thinking, Butch. That's what you're good at. So what had happened is in Stillwater, Oklahoma, at Oklahoma State, and a friend of mine who happened to be a professor, who took great care of me and taught me a lot, named Jack Deskin, and he gave me his car to drive, but we were both drunk and stupid. And it was like 1967, something like that. And so I'm trying to drive Jack's car by myself, and because he was totally incapacitated. And I made it home, but I really don't even remember the drive. And that kind of stupidity, if you get past that, and you've been blessed by God to have gotten by being incredibly young and stupid. And I understand that was before people were talking about it, and before Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And that's why I spent a lot of time donating in several different communities that I worked in radio and television to Mothers Against Drunk Driving, because they lost their children. They lost their children because of a dumb shit like me who was out at 19 years of age, and nobody thought about that then, when clearly they should have known that, but they didn't. So I was lucky then. And then in Philadelphia, I had gone to a bar to eat and then stay a little too long after the 6 o'clock news, and which I didn't normally do. Normally the 6 o'clock was done by Tom Brookshire, the former Eagles defensive back, who did the early show at the CBS station in Philadelphia, and I did the 11 o'clock show, but Tommy had to do something. I think he was on the road going for a CBS event. And so I went, and by the time I was done with dinner and some drinks, I was drunk, and I couldn't find my car. And a Philadelphia policeman drives up. And once again, you're lucky. Sometimes celebrity can bring a difficulty to you, and sometimes it can save your ass. And he rolled down his window and said, "Hey, Ted, what are you doing? It's 45 minutes till the 11 o'clock news. What the hell are you doing?" And I walked to the car. I walked to his window and I said, "Officer, I got to tell you, I'm half in a bag. I can't find my car. I got to get back to Channel 10, which is a pretty long ways from downtown where I was, out on the city line, they called it in Philadelphia." And instead of arresting me at that moment, because I wasn't driving technically that way, he said, "Get in the car. Get in the car." And so, unlike many Kansas City Chiefs and Dallas Cowboys, I got in the front seat of a police car. Those guys have never been in the front seat, only the back seat with their hands behind their backs, handcuffed. So I got in the front seat with him, and he drove me to Channel 10 in Philadelphia and said, "You okay?" Yeah, and by that time, the fear of going on the set and slurring words or ending my career had really sobered me up. And the fact that he said, "Hey, I'm going to slap you in the face. You want me to slap you in the face a couple of times? Because I will." Yeah. I said, "No, I'm good. I'm good." By then I knew his name, and he was a professional, but he was giving me a professional courtesy. And I don't know why. I didn't deserve it. I shouldn't have gotten it. And I'm sure other people would have been arrested. And so those were the two times that I thought, thank you so much. Thank you. I love my work so much. Thank you so much for getting me by when I lived. You said we were dumb and stupid.
Yeah. And thankfully we didn't hurt anybody.
That's the thing. That's the thing. I mean, the idea that you hit someone's child, like the Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and live with that, or no, try to live with that the rest of your life. Someone took your little child away, and it was some dumbass who was drinking and driving, and inexcusable for me or anybody else who did it. And others didn't get away with it. And that's a problem.
I need to ask, what is the biggest sports story of the week? Has anything consumed your thinking about in sports that has happened?
Yeah, the biggest sports story of the week is an interesting one. It doesn't involve the sport itself, but it involves, and remind me, Jimmy, remind me to go back to DiMaggio. I got to hear more about the DiMaggio, because he and Jerry said DiMaggio was very standoffish and very old school, old world.
Oh yeah.
And he didn't really run with the rest of the guys, and he knew he was Joe DiMaggio, and he was. But Jerry had a very good relationship with him and told me a lot of stuff about him. So I want to get back to that. But to answer your question, I've already forgotten the question.
What else is on your mind? So we can still keep talking about Joe. But, think about it.
What was the other thing you asked me just before that? This aging mind that's already out of my mind.
It'll come to me. But,
Oh, the big sports question. Thank you, Joe. See, that's why our producer's here. It's like, hey, how many times I got to tell you guys? Pay attention. He said, watch my lips, the biggest sports story. Way to go, Joe. Way to go. It was the San Francisco Giants on Pride Night in San Francisco. And the only two teams that have been grandfathered in who can have pride nights to honor the gay community and show their support for the gay community, quite frankly, in exchange for the gay community's support of them as a baseball team. All teams used to have that. That's what we Americans do. We can be against a group, or we can not like a group, or be uncomfortable with a group, or whatever that group happens to be. Highly religious people, atheists, people can have problems with either one. And people can have problems with someone who's gay, and it makes them uncomfortable. We've gone through all this. We've gone through all this in our lifetimes. So it's the idea that the other teams have stopped doing it because it just creates so many problems, including with a lot of players. And I've been around, I don't know, 1,000 or more Major League Baseball players in my career, and many are very religious, Christians, and they believe that this is not something that they want to be near, part of. They think, according to the Bible, it's anathema, and it's a lifestyle they want nothing to do or want to hear about. And a lot of those players are very, very conservative, and like I said, very, very upset by the gay pride nights at their ballpark. And so now baseball said, it's a can of worms, let's not mess with it. But because of the two teams that insisted, especially San Francisco with its gay community, that we really want to thank them for what they do for us. And they take a lot of crap, a lot of criticism, a lot of controversy all across the country. We want to do that for them. And Major League Baseball said, okay, the Dodgers and the Giants can continue to do that. So the Giants have one. And then several Christian conservative ball players, because part of the gay pride uniform that they had specially made was a cap in rainbow colors representing the LGBTQ community. And so several of these Christians players on the Giants had written messages in black marker on their caps. And I don't know the quotes. I did not see the quotes of what they say. And I don't know that they were anti-gay comments so much as pro-Christian, pro-Bible comments.
Right.
Dealing with the gay community. I forgive me for not knowing exactly what they said. I looked for that and I couldn't find it. Was not quoted in the different sources that I went to. So that was the deal, and the gay community was flat out pissed all throughout San Francisco and the surrounding communities, and those people at the ballpark, because of those players doing that. So they're wearing a gay pride uniform, but they're sending what they perceived as anti-gay messages on the caps of those several Christian players. Now that is one big, messy controversy.
It is.
I don't know what the answer is. I don't know. But Buster Posey, the former all-star catcher, is the president of baseball operations of the Giants. So he calls, not a news conference, but he goes in the dugout like managers do before every game.
Oh, there you go.
And
there you go. Look at that, Ted.
Yep. And says, meets the media. Then Posey says, all the comments I made, all the comments the Giants made, all the comments my players made, I'm not going to revisit that. I'm not going to talk about that, which in my opinion is always a mistake. It's always better to just go and go head on. I remember the time when they had the gang rape accusations with Ariza, the punter at San Diego State, and J.D. Wicker and Brady Hoke. And it's hard to talk like this because both those guys are good friends of mine, and I have great respect for them, and I traveled with them. They both took care of me. But the two of them had a news conference, and they said, we're not going to take questions about Ariza. We're not going to do it. Let's talk about the game on Saturday, football, whatever. And of course, it's the media's job. It's what they're paid to do, to represent all the audience out there, the readership and the community. And so ask them, some guy starts out and says, even though you get that admonishment, we're not going to answer those. It's your job to ask the questions. And people did the same thing with Buster Posey about this is a huge story, especially in San Francisco with the gay community. And Posey said, I'm not going to revisit that. I already said that. Any other baseball questions about the club? We're playing lousy. We have big problem. No, really, they stink. They're just terrible. They're just terrible. And we're trying to work this thing out. We're having a horrible year. I'm glad to talk about any issue whatsoever. And then somebody else says, but Buster, this is a very big deal. I said I wouldn't talk about it. Same thing at that time. So the first question to Brady and to JD was, this is a big story and the national news is talking about it. And Brady and JD got up and they walked out of the news conference.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, no. I love you guys. You're my friends. Yeah. It's better to go head on, because if you don't talk about it, even if you said, don't ask me, they ask anyway. It's their job. Roll with the punches. In the long run, cover-ups or that somebody thinks you're covering up and you're not, but they'll think you're covering up. Don't do that. So that's what's going on with the Giants. And it's a huge thing in San Francisco, obviously. And it is better sometimes, I guess, if something's so controversial, don't even stick the stick in that big beehive. Let it go. And others say, no, we're taking a stand and we're supporting this gay community that supports us in San Francisco. And you got to love that. You got to respect that too.
Ted, you talk about the different personalities and the different attitudes and the different levels of acceptance. And then you think about the great teams that come together. They're made up of people with completely different personalities from different parts of the country, different beliefs, different faiths. And so it's so remarkable whenever a team comes together and maybe doesn't have the greatest talent, but still wins, still plays hard, still entertains. And it's just so remarkable. And when I marvel at the ability of the managers, head coaches, general managers who are able to see that and bring the people together and make it work and have a winning team and a winning attitude.
Sure.
But I have to tell you 2 hat stories real quick. I have a hat from Whitey Wiedemann, who was a longtime equipment manager for the Padres. It's an authentic San Diego hat, and it has a WW on it. And I was down there doing the end of baseball season story, and Whitey was there and going through some stuff. He said, "Hey, you want a hat?" I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." He goes, "See if it fits." Well, it fit perfectly. And then I have a Detroit Tigers hat from Sparky Anderson. It doesn't say Sparky or anything like that, but it's an authentic hat that he rented a house from me when I was traded out here, and he was just been hired in Detroit. And he left a cap for me with a note. "Hey, I loved your house. Thanks for the hospitality.
I think that's awesome.
Good luck." So I have 2 caps that I wear from time to time. It's a Detroit Tigers cap with a D, and I look like Tom Selleck when I put it on. and then the Whitey Wiedemann San Diego Padres classic Padres hat. I love it.
Did you ever have Whitey's chili? Whitey was famous for his chili, but this pot sat there, and players would say, "How long has this pot been there? What the hell's in there? What? No, it tastes good, but I'm really worried about the magic unknown ingredients in Whitey's chili." He was.
Do they still have clubhouse guys like that?
Huh?
Do they still have clubhouse guys like that?
Not quite like that. No, yeah. No, not now. And no, again, those guys were baseball lifers. I call them. They're baseball lifers. They played in the minor leagues, and it was it Whitey? I'm trying to think if it was Whitey or I'm thinking of somebody else. But Whitey, one of those guys who had played, had an injury to his little finger, his pinky finger, and got to the dugout, and the trainer was looking at it, and Bob Chandler would know this in a second, but I don't know if it was Whitey or somebody else from the old days, the old school lifers, that basically said, "Just cut it off. Just cut it off." And the trainer took a jackknife out and cut it off. And in my mind, I think that's Whitey during his minor league days. I could be wrong, because my brain is, as comic book guy says on The Simpsons, my brain is no longer in mint condition. And I'm always remembering stuff. But I think that was Whitey. I'm going to text Bob when we get done, and then I'll correct it next week.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. And you and I talked last time at the end that I'm really trying, Jim, that I do have, as doctors would say, diarrhea of the mouth. And I do suffer from word hemorrhages, and I don't know why, and I'm trying to control it, that I even know I talk too much. So these guys who have a terrific podcast called Past Their Prime. And so they contact me through the Padres, through Jorge, who runs the media, the Spanish operations and media relations. And Jorge says, "Will you go on there?" And I said, "Sure. What's the name of it?" And he says, "Past Their Prime." And I say, "Jorge, that's me." That could be a podcast named after me. I am so past my prime, so over the hill. And so I make contact with him. Long story, even longer. And what they do is they take Sports Illustrated covers through the years, and then they do a show on that cover boy or cover girl from the Sports Illustrated. And the one they were doing was the one around the All-Star break, just before the All-Star game in 1976, when the great, and I do mean great, Randy Jones was on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
Wow.
And so they said, we hear you were very close to Randy. I said, you bet. And would you come on? And I did. And so we did the podcast a few days ago, and it was wonderful. And there are all sorts of questions about Randy and just, it was just, and I told them the story that one that I had used at the memorial when I eulogized Randy at Petco for the public memorial, again, that Hal Clement had told me when Hal was doing sports at Channel 10 before he came over to help us a great deal become number one at Channel 8 in those years. And Hal had called Randy and said, hey, Randy, it's the old, everybody did this. Jerry Coleman did it every time he saw him every day. Hey, he always called Randy his middle name. He never said Lefty or RJ. Hey, Leo. Only Jerry would call him Leo for 40, 50 years. And so, hey, Leo, now, and I'm 75, I could hit you. And I love that byplay. I love that byplay all the time.
Yeah.
And so Hal Clement, of course, starts the same thing with, hey, I played a little baseball. RJ, I can hit you. You think so? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to do a story for Channel 10. I'll meet you at the stadium. So they go to Jack Murphy, and Hal digs in, and Randy's on the mound and fouls off a couple of pitches, takes a couple of pitches. And then Hal makes some good contact right up the box and almost hits RJ, makes him dance out of the way. And RJ throws his glove down and stalks toward the plate and says, hey, damn it, don't ever hit a ball up the box at me again. And I'm serious. And Hal is like, oh, my God, this is coming from Randy Jones. And then the blood is rushing out of Hal's face. And his heart is going boom, 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 boom. And a beat, and a second beat, and Randy gets hysterically laughing. He was putting him on, and Hal goes, oh, God, I was scared. It scared me. I thought you were having some kind of a flashback facing Willie Mays or something. And it just, that's Randy. Yeah. Of course, he would never say no to the request.
No, he was the best.
Everybody loved him.
Yeah. But you mentioned another guy there, Hal Clement. And for those of you who are listening and watching who don't remember Hal Clement, he was the best storyteller, reporter at Channel 8 and in San Diego during
Sports
his time.
News.
He and Lauren Nancaro, and I'm going to leave people out, but there were some terrific storytellers, and Jim Holtzman, our news director, encouraged that. He encouraged you, Ted. He gave you the leeway to sit there and pontificate and whatever Kate you wanted.
that word fits. See, pompous ass equals pontification. Exactly right. You have the formula just perfectly right. But that was RJ, and I got to tell you, I mentioned this at the end of my eulogy that that night when we finally got the confirmation, because they couldn't find his grandchildren to tell them face to face that Gramps had died, and so and not only that, but died on Marie's birthday. I mean, what could be more catastrophic and horrible in terms of that story? So I had contact with a text to Tom Seidler, the younger of the Seidler brothers, and now the vice president of the Padres, who I worked with as an ambassador the last 5 years. And we confirmed it to each other. And Tom had texted me and said, very simply, short text, and to the point, there will never be another Randy Jones. And
Amen.
That is so true. So true. It's the old, when I was in Oklahoma, it was Will Rogers. Will Rogers, the old humorist from the 30s and 40s, had a thing called, I never met a man I didn't like. That was what a great handle for Will Rogers. And that was Randy. Never met a man he didn't like, and never had somebody who didn't like him. And those people asked me on that webcast, on the podcast, what was it about Randy? And I said, it's just ask every teammate. Ask Willie McCovey when he was alive, when he was a Padre. Ask anybody who ever faced him or played with him, and he's just one of those guys that everybody loves. When I was the co-host of the Randy Jones Show, the pregame show on Channel 8 before I was a Padre broadcaster, I mentioned to Randy out of respect, hey, I just got here, Randy. You're Randy Jones. You're a Cy Young winner, man. Everybody knows you. I don't want you having to run around and get guests for our show. I'll do it. And he says, oh, thanks. I appreciate it. And so the first time the Giants are in, and Willie McCovey, having been with the Giants, Padres Giants, McCovey's back at first base for the Giants. So I go up the stretch, who I met 1,000 years ago. It's a great story, but I won't go on and on and on about it. I met him when I was a vendor at Shea Stadium when the Giants came back to play the Mets, and the Giants had left with the Dodgers after 57, and now the Giants are coming back. It's a huge thing in New York, just like when the Dodgers came back.
Sure.
Time. So I go up to McCovey. I don't go up to him. I'm walking past the Giants clubhouse, and there's McCovey, and I'm in awe. This huge, this monster. And he says, hey, kid, and I'm in my little vendor uniform. And he says, kid, can you give me a sandwich? I said, you bet, Stretch, I will. And he gives me, I think, a $5 bill, and sandwiches were like 35 cents back then in the 60s. And so I get him a sandwich, and I bring it back, and he lets me keep the change, which was more than I was going to make the entire day, sweating bullets out there in the New York humidity. And so I remind him of that when I stop him. And when you come on the pregame, so you won't remember this Stretch, but I'm the vendor, yada, yada, yada. I want you to come on the show, the pregame show, but I just say pregame show. And he says, nah, I work to do. I got pregame work to do. And he blows me off. Okay, I get somebody else. The next day, I'm walking on the field, and McCovey says, hey, come here. So I go over, and he says, why didn't you tell me it was the Randy Jones Show? That it was for RJ. This is called Know Your Audience, know your interviewee, and use the right names and the right plugs to get what you want to get. A great lesson for all young broadcasters. So he said, if you told me for RJ, I'd come on, no matter what I had to do. And I said, I shouldn't, but I was getting to that story that it was the Randy Jones Show, but immediately you said no. And so that's why. And so then I realized, hey, RJ, the way Willie McCovey talked about you, that's how everybody talks about you. It'll probably be a better show if you get the guests, because you'll get everybody, and we'll get better guests. And I'm a nobody. They're going to tell me to go pound sand, as many players do, unfortunately. So from then on, Randy got the guests, and we had Willie Mays, and we had we even had Steve Carlton when the Phillies were in, and Carlton had already blown off all the media and wouldn't talk to anybody. But I said, hey, Lefty, which was Carlton's name. I said, Lefty. I'd met him in Philadelphia, where I came before I got here. I said, hey, Lefty, it's for Lefty. Will you do it for Randy Jones? And he said, yeah. And so that's how we got him. And the rest of them, like I'm saying, from Mace to Mike Schmidt to you name it, everybody would do it for Randy Jones.
That's great. Look at that.
Boy. That's my boy.
Look at that. You got to win 30.
That's my boy. And every time, because he and I were the two ambassadors for the Padres, the only two. So we would both come be with Tom Seidler, who runs the owner's suite, and shake hands and take self pictures and all that stuff. And opening day, Tom still invited me. And I can't tell you how empty it was for me to not have dinner before a game with Randy Jones. Devastating. Devastating, because I never knew Padre baseball without RJ. Never. He was still playing when I got here. Then I co-hosted his TV show. Then he had the barbecue at the old stadium. Then he had the kiosks at Petco. And he would bring barbecue to the press box every day so Jerry could, put him down and insult him and all that stuff. And he was just one of the great people I ever met.
Yeah, you think about the hard work he put into everything, into his career.
Oh, please.
Into the barbecue. I mean, it was sincerely him.
Yeah.
And his family. But
comes up.
Incredible.
Yeah. Comes up a year after he gets drafted, he's in the majors. And then 75 he starts to get good. And they realize nobody can hit this sinker. And
did he ever explain to you how it was that he developed that sinker?
Not how he developed it, but people kept asking, and this is what we talked about on the podcast, dealing with because Randy was 16-3 at the All-Star break in 76. Wow. Think about that. And would always go either 8 or 9, almost gets lit up a couple of times, but it was unbelievable. So you talk about records that'll never be broken. I mean, the game has changed so much that Randy's numbers, not so much records, numbers will never be broken. You know how many there were? There were 13 or 14 complete games in total from all starting pitchers in the American and National League last year. 13 or 14 total. Randy had 25 in the year he won the Cy Young. 25. So the way things are now, or 4-man rotations then, that'll never happen again. Ever, what Randy did. 25 complete games, then 200 innings. Now 200 innings he's a workhorse. He's a workhorse.
Yeah.
Randy had 300. It'll never happen again. And his ERA was 2.74, and with the 25 complete games, and it was a different era. Baseball was different. But Randy, and the secret came out, he would never say this when he played. The secret came out, boys and girls and sports fans of all ages, that the more tired he got, the more the ball sunk. And the sinker became more effective later. Where normally against a tough pitcher, it's like, well, we had trouble the first couple of times at bat, but in at bat number 3 and 4, we're going to do better. But they did worse because Randy found out himself that as he got more tired and couldn't overthrow the sinker, it would sink more and more sharply. And these guys are still flailing and not able. When Pete Rose came on with the Phillies, when they visited in that year for the pregame show with me and Randy, and Randy had arranged for Pete to come on. So I go get Pete to remind him. And as we're walking over, I say, Pete, how come you can't hit this guy? And Pete being Pete, hey, Ted, get a bat. Step your ass in there. See if you can hit him. But I said, but Pete, my God, that one time that he did, Pete was right-handed, was a switch hitter, but he, of course, batted right-handed against lefty. But the one time he thought, damn it, I can't hit this guy right-handed. I'll try lefty against lefty. And he goes to the left side and he grounds out to first base. So I remind Pete of that. He says, thanks for the reminder. I remember. And Pete says, I'm hitting like a $110 against this guy. And I said, no, 178 lifetime. So I won't tell you what Pete told me to do when I told him that, but it's physically, anatomically impossible to do. But I mentioned that number to Pete. But he was just really terrific, an ambassador for baseball. And he put San Diego on the map. He was the first of what we call the cornerstone. It was Randy Jones, then Dave Winfield, and then Tony Gwynn and Trevor Hoffman. Those are the 4 corners in the cornerstone of the foundation of my San Diego Padres. And the first one was, in fact, Randy Jones.
Yeah, very nice.
So just to end that story, to tell you that I was trying desperately to shut up, and here I talked for 5 minutes straight trying to shut up. And when we got done with the podcast of these guys on the Past Your Prime doing the show on Randy, recording it, they thought I was gone. They thought I was disconnected, but I still could hear them. I could still hear the two of them talking. And one of them says to the other, damn, I only had to ask a question once every 20 minutes. Will this guy Leitner ever shut the hell up? And I heard them, but they couldn't hear me. They didn't know I was still listening. My picture was gone from the hookup on the Zoom, but I could still hear them, and they were talking about Jesus Christmas. Put a sock in it, will you please? And they thought, well, easy show. We ask one thing, he does 20 minutes, and we come back and ask something else. So I thought to myself, I'm not quite there yet. What I promised Jim, I'm not quite there yet.
So maybe you hear air traffic in the background.
Of course.
That's the sound of freedom.
It is.
Planes landing at the nearby Navy base. So I apologize for that.
Coronado, at North Island.
I apologize for that, but
no, don't.
God bless America.
Never do. I said that years ago when I was in Scripps, and I've been in San Penasquitos until last week when I moved to Rancho Bernardo, and we still get plenty of it. And it is the sound of freedom. And in your mind, think of our enemies, and think of hearing that sound, of that screeching F-14 or now F-18 or the Raptor, the F-22 that they're flying in Miramar now, and think of the idea, oh my God, it's one of theirs. It's the Americans. We're in deep doo-doo, man. And those guys are so tough. They're so brave. They're so trained. And our guys are okay, but they can't dogfight with those Americans. They got no damn chance for the most part. Think of the fear of people in the military in those other countries, our enemies, as well as, unfortunately, the collateral damage, the citizens who have nothing to do with the fight, but they were hearing those planes come overhead. And I thought whoever came up with that line is the greatest, I think, one of the greatest in military history. It is, in fact, as you said, the sound of freedom.
Land of the free because of the brave.
That's it, man. That's it.
That's it.
Now, back to Joe DiMaggio, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I mentioned the term.
So wait a second. Now, having met Joe DiMaggio and Ted Williams in my lifetime, that's a pretty good.
No, that's terrific. That's terrific, because I did not meet DiMaggio, and I was with Ted Williams many, many times, only because of his friendship since they played against each other, Yankees, Red Sox, with Jerry Coleman. But tell me about the deal with DiMaggio.
I was approached by a PR firm. They wanted me to do an interview with Joe. I said, my background's football. There was good baseball people in town. I'm thinking about you, and who would love to sit and talk to Joe. I said, no, we were told, we're going to be in the Coronado area. We're going to use you. I said, great, thank you. He was terrific. He was, but how many people have you interviewed you're in awe of? But this is like ever since I was a kid, I knew that name. It's different from, and he was one of the greatest of all time.
No question.
And it's like, really, I get to interview, sit down, and make small talk.
And I had a career like that, not with Joe DiMaggio, but with a lot of other names that, as a child, I would have been and speechless.
Exactly.
And speechless. And if you ever lose that as a broadcaster, the money's nice, and we have no helmet with a light, no heavy lifting, and we have a great job, and we're so blessed to have that job. Yeah. And if you if you don't get goosebumps when you're interviewing someone like that, and for me it was astronauts and military leaders, people like that, and if you don't have goosebumps and think, how am I, some absolute nobody, being able to meet someone like this? It's only because I'm in that profession. And I had that feeling so many times. I'm so thankful.
I have to tell you my Bill Mazeroski story, because when I was 8 years old, he hits a home run, beats the Yankees in Game 7 of the World Series, right?
I remember. It broke my heart. Thank you.
I've told you this story probably. So I had a picture of the swing, and the ball's over the shortstop, and it's the actual game-winning swing. And I had a couple copies made, and I knew he was going to be in town. And I thought, well, I'll approach him, and I'm not allowed to ask for autographs. It's so gauche to be a sports reporter and asking for an autograph. I said, this is my boyhood hero. I have to do it. So I apologized. I said, before I get started on this next endeavor, Maz, I'd like to apologize. I really shouldn't be asking for your autograph, but I have this picture of you hitting the home run. Oh, yeah, I see. And I have an extra one for you, too, in case you like it. He goes, you give them to me. So he signs them both. He gives them both back. It's, don't you want one? He goes, nice. No, I have dozens of those. Don't worry about it. Just enjoy it. He was so nice of him. I was so embarrassed. And I waited till everybody was gone. But it was like an all-star game, and they invited the old-timers to be there, too. So I was in the dugout, the Padres dugout, with my two pictures hidden. I'm so embarrassed, but I have it framed. It's right over here. I could show it to you.
No, it's that we are kids. There's a little boy in each of us. There's a little boy and little girl in each of us that never goes away. Yeah. And we always have that, no matter who we are, who we think we are, what we accomplished, who we met, and all that stuff. That little boy and girl should always be in there, and always thrilled by those people that we looked up to as kids. And I had been, the first time I met Wally Schirra of the Mercury 7 astronauts, who lived in Rancho Santa Fe. I got in my car after, and I started to cry and thought, I met Captain Wally Schirra, United States Navy, the only astronaut who was on Mercury 7, which basically invented space travel for America, because the Russians were doing it, but they weren't sharing anything with us. Those guys put their life on the line and literally risked their lives and gave it, as they said, A-OK. Everything's A-OK, and we'll be fine. And I'm in awe. I'm getting goosebumps literally right now talking about Wally, and the idea that I even knew him and he came on my talk shows, and we had lunch, and it was beyond belief, and nothing I ever did deserved that or warranted to me. But this guy, like I said, was on Mercury, Gemini, had a moonshot, walked on the moon, was a fighter pilot in Korea, was a test pilot, he was the first to test the Sidewinder missile out at Edwards Air Force Base.
Wow.
And Wally told me that he fires one, not the first one, but in several days of training, and he fires the Sidewinder, and it's at the early stage of the tracking system, and all of a sudden the missile goes straight up. The Sidewinder goes haywire, and it goes straight up, and it makes a giant loop, as Wally is on a single engine plane and a single pilot plane, so there's nobody to help him look around. So he's trying to look around and see where the damn missile went, and then he realizes it did a full arc straight up, and then went right in that arc and came in behind Wally's plane.
Wow! By
1,000 feet or whatever.
Yeah.
Now it's chasing the heat signature of Wally's engine on his jet, and it's after him. He's supposed to shoot it at the enemy, but this thing has gone haywire in the whatever baby-sized computer or whatever they use in there for the tracking system on the missile, on the Sidewinder, and it's behind him. And I said, Wally, what did you do? And because those guys just make jokes about that. I said, you just got to be calm, or that'll ruin your day. That's what will ruin your day, Wally says, because that's the way the astronauts talk. Because you know what, Jim? We have 2, and they have 3 or 4.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know how they walk.
I'm with you.
We'll leave it at that. If you get my drift, I don't know how they walk, because they have not dos huevos, but they have more than that. And I'm convinced they were born with them. I could study and try to be them and try to have their guts, and I know I could not. And that's Wally. And so I said, what'd you do? He said, eventually I did what the missile did. I pulled back on the stick of my jet, and I went straight up, just like it did, and put a big old loop behind it. And now I'm behind the Sidewinder missile, and I'm chasing and I chase it out over the Pacific, and I wait X number of minutes that I know the fuel will run out. The fuel runs out, it crashes in the Pacific, and nothing happens.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, I mean, Wally, you're this close to them calling Joe and telling her she's a widow. And that's the profession they were in. And it fascinated me because Wally got thousands of awards like all the other Mercury 7 astronauts who had no failures. They were amazing. And they only lost life when they were training Gus Grisham and those guys, where they had the flash fire on Apollo 1. That's the first time they lost anybody. They were just NASA, and they were magnificent. In not just their guts and A-OK, we're ready to go, light this candle. And I start to cry every time I hear those words, Alan Shepard, and because Wally had told me they'd all gone to the rockets and been in the blockhouse with their goggles on to watch the rockets that are eventually going to take them into space, and they all blew up. They blew up day after day, launch after launch, and I said, Wally, what'd you do? We'd watch. And we'd take our goggles off and we'd say, want to go to lunch? It's gallows humor. It's tiptoeing through the cemetery. It's gallows humor. We're going to be in a nose cone, as they called it, on top of that rocket, as Chuck Yeager called it, spam in a can. You guys are just spam in a can, like in the movie The Right Stuff. And so they're all blowing up. And so Alan Shepard, Commander Shepard, these are my all-time heroes, and my profession, our profession, let me meet John Glenn and Wally Schirra, and I'm so thankful to God that happened to me. No matter what else happened, that happened. And so on the first launch, if you remember, and you're too young, you're a kid, that they kept postponing Alan Shepard's first launch ever, and finally he says to the blockhouse, to NASA, hey, what's the deal? Well, we got a problem with this and that. So this man who has seen the rockets blow up and trained says, well, listen, fix your little problem and light this candle. That's the men. That's the men this country has produced. Yes. And has been at the forefront of our exploration. And I am such in love and in awe with them. And Wally, rest in peace. And all of you guys, I mean, I don't have enough words to have the blessing of having met these men. They're just amazing.
It is. It's wonderful. Well,
whoa, whoa. It's something. It's like Clint Eastwood said. Remember that movie? Man's got to know his limitations. We do. I do. And those men are not like us. They're just not. And those women, as it turned out, Sally Ride and all those others, and female fighter pilots, they're the very same. Sex has nothing to do with it. Male, female, they got the same guts. They got the same, as the astronaut said, push the envelope. Push the envelope. Keep going. Keep going. Go out there. Punch a hole in the sky. And Wally never wanted to be known as an astronaut. Wally wanted to be known as a test pilot. That's what he took the greatest pride in, to take a brand new airplane, go out there and basically do everything but make it crash. See what it will do in a dive, see what it will do if it gets into a barrel roll, see what it will do if you lose power. And that's what test pilots do. They're doing it right now at Edwards and other places around the country, our guys, our women. And that's what Wally took most pride in. And Wally Schirra. And everybody knew him more than some of the others, except John Glenn, who became a senator because he became Walter Cronkite's broadcast partner for the moon launches. For all the Apollos, Wally was on set with Walter Cronkite on CBS and became even more famous. And I just...
amazing accomplishments.
Oh, my God. I'm so lucky.
We live in a wonderful country. So what else is on your mind, Ted?
Yes, just to share. I used to tease Stu Lance. Who did my analyst work for the Clippers when they played in San Diego. And Channel 8 did the television of the Clippers, and I did the play-by-play. And Stu, a former player of note with the Detroit Pistons, as you recall, and you former Lion U. And when he worked with Chick Hearn, Chick had this, like me, had word hemorrhages also. So people always tease Stu because all Stu would get in was, right you are, Chick. You're right, Chick. Right you are, Chick.
That's right, Ted. That's right, Ted.
But I don't want to leave. I'm not trying to talk more because God knows I'm trying to stop. If you love me, Lord, shut my mouth, please. I don't have a career. I've had one by the grace of these people watching and listening. I've had one from the people in San Diego, and I'm so lucky. But the DiMaggio thing, I would have loved to have met him. And but Jerry said he was very, very private. And if you mentioned Marilyn Monroe, his wife, you were done.
Yeah.
He didn't want any questions about his wife because that's all they got from the media. And if they ask a question, you're not asking any more questions. You ask me about Marilyn.
Understandably.
I told you guys, don't ask me about Marilyn. That's private. That's personal. And he was very old world Italian, which I mean very, very classy and very private. As an example, Jerry said, they'd be basically naked in the clubhouse after a game, going in the shower and whatever. And they were all male reporters then, so nobody cared. But Joe, as reporters would come to his locker to talk to him, and if he had just a bare chest, had no shirt on, taking his uniform off, and was getting ready to take the rest off, he would say, "Hold it, fellas, hold it," and he would put a shirt on.
Yeah.
Even before his shower, let me get decent, kind of a thing. He was that private, and thought that was not decent, but that was not classy to stand there, half naked in front of male reporters. He thought that was not dignified. That his father had taught him in San Francisco growing up in the Italian community there. And I thought that was really impressive that he was that private. But the story I will leave you with, and then you can close and I can go, I can go sit here by myself in my house and talk to myself the rest of the night. Because as you know, I just love to hear that sound.
It's good stuff though, Ted.
Billy Crystal tells the story in one of his books that he wrote. So it's absolutely true. Billy's hero growing up as a New York kid was the same as mine, Mickey Mantle. And because of Jerry, I got to meet Mickey Mantle. I'll leave that for another time. Multiple times. I'm so damn lucky.
That's good.
And so it's already gone. So Billy Crystal is asked to be one of the masters of ceremonies at Yankee Stadium for Old Timers Day. And in his contract, while Joe DiMaggio was alive, obviously, he put in the contract that he had to be introduced last. After Yogi Berra, after Whitey Ford, after even Mickey Mantle, DiMaggio insisted on being introduced last.
Makes sense to me.
To get the last big ovation.
Sure.
Because he thought he was the greatest Yankee.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe he was. Other people think it was Mantle, whatever. So Billy Crystal thinks, bullshit. Mickey's my hero. Mickey's my hero. When Billy Crystal did the movie 61 about the race in 1961 between Maris and Mantle to see who would break Babe Ruth's 60 home run record.
Yeah.
He did that movie for HBO called 61. And after that, he did a special with Mickey Mantle at Cooperstown. And Crystal tells the story that first of all, he's met his idol. He's gotten to know his idol a little bit. And now for the final scenes of the special that he's doing, they're having a catch. Billy Crystal, the little kid from Long Island, is having a catch with Mickey Mantle. And Billy starts to cry like crazy. And Mantle hates that. Mantle hates that because he didn't have a great self-image of himself. He thought he was a lousy father, a lousy husband. He cheated on his wife, and he was an alcoholic, and he didn't rehab his injuries, or he might have been able to play longer. But like everybody else in his family, no males ever lived to past 40. And Mickey thought he was going to die young, so I'm going to pound that Budweiser. I'm going to go drink. I'm going to live every day to the fullest. I'm going to get every woman I can get. That was Mickey. So when people fawned on him and said, "Oh, Mickey, I loved you so much," I ain't Jack Armstrong, the all-American boy. Trust me, I'm not who you think I am. That was his image of himself. It was fascinating. It's a fascinating psychological story for a guy that his teammates just adored. So Billy Crystal says, "Mickey Mantle's my guy." And then even when he starts crying, Mickey says, "Billy, what?" In that long accent, "What the hell are you crying about?" And Mickey, you don't understand how much you meant to us kids. Oh, shit, I don't want that bullshit. Let's just have a catch. That's how he tells the story. And so they have a catch. So now he comes in. Billy Crystal is going to be, after the Yankee broadcasters, he's going to take over and introduce the final guys. And so he is told that Joe has a contract. He's got to be last. And you have to also say, when you introduce Joe DiMaggio, here's the greatest living ball player. That's what Joe wants you to say.
Wow.
And Billy Crystal writes, "Ain't a goddamn chance, no chance that I would say that with Mickey Mantle right over there." And to me, Mickey Mantle was faster, had more power, switch hitter, yada, yada. DiMaggio, without question, great. I think Mickey was better. I think he was better.
Well, people in San Diego tell you that the chap from here, Ted Williams, is pretty darn good.
He's up there. He's right up there. No question about that.
You had a chance to meet Ted, did you?
I met Ted 1,000 times.
Yes, wonderful.
Only because he and Jerry Coleman were very close friends.
Yeah.
And I'll tell the story later in our podcast how Ted would never, ever forget or stop razzing Jerry because Jerry won the 1949 final game against the Red Sox.
Yeah.
Stadium to win the pennant and win the World Series, and the splinter, Ted Williams, never forgot it, and it ate at him. Remind me next Wednesday to tell you the story how when Ted was dying, his final words to Jerry were about that hit again.
Of course.
Again, but these guys were such competitors.
Yeah.
You never saw those guys talking to each other or having fun at the All-Star game. We're going to kick your ass. And they meant it. And they hated, the American League hated the National League and vice versa. And Ted never forgave Jerry, although they were bosom buddies and great friends, for that hit. So Billy Crystal decides, there's no way I'm saying this guy's the best living ball player. I'll call him the Yankee Clipper. So he introduces him. First, he introduces the great number 7, Mickey Mantle. And then last after Mantle is DiMaggio. And he says, and now the Yankee Clipper. All these other things, but he doesn't say greatest living ball player. And here he is, the Yankee Clipper, Joltin' Joe DiMaggio. And everybody, 60,000 at the Yankee Stadium go crazy. Afterwards, they're in the green room where everybody gets together for a celebration and a reception and drinks. And Billy says, I'm standing there, and DiMaggio walks up to me and punches the shit out of me in the stomach so hard, I double over and fall to my knees.
Wow.
Fortunately, I had nothing to eat yet at the buffet, and I just had a drink. I dropped the drink, and I dropped to my knees, and DiMaggio leans over to me in my ear and says, greatest living ball player. Is that story a bitch or what?
That's wow.
Wow. Joe was very into that and very different, a very different kind of a guy. And that was the way he was. That's all. Just the way he was.
Yeah. Well, Ted, that's the way we were. We're done.
That was always the best one.
No, that's a stunning story. And then that just
really
tells
is.
you.
No, it really
tells you.
It really is. And I never got to see him play in person. Wish that I had, but I did not. I was very young. My father never took us any place like that. If it cost money, my dad didn't go. And honestly, so.
I treasure my moments at Forbes Field when I got to see Roberto Clemente, Bob Skinner, Bill Bolton, Bill Mazeroski, Smokey Burgess, Vernon Law. I mean, the 1960 Pirates, they were everything to me. I was 8 years old. They went out and they beat your Yankees, broke your heart. They broke your heart in 7 games.
Did you ever look at the scores of that 1960 game that you mentioned? Mazeroski won. The Yankees won 10-0, 16-3. Yeah. That was an amazing Yankee team, so much better than the Pirates. But it's the old on any given day or any given series or any best out of 7. And there's Mazeroski. I can still see Yogi Berra playing left field and not catching that day, trying to push the wall back in left field. Forbes Field trying to give me some room. Give me some room. Here comes the ball. Mazeroski home run, walk off, which they didn't call it then. And Mickey Mantle sat on the dugout for a half hour crying his eyes out. And the rest of his life, he could not believe they lost that series to your Pittsburgh Pirates.
To the Pittsburgh Pirates. I know.
Which has an amazing, wonderful franchise, a great history. And I got to know Ralph Kiner, who was one of the greats on that team as a broadcaster with the Mets. And I was privileged to know Ralph during his time.
That's great.
Pittsburgh's been down too long. Pittsburgh needs to have the Cubs and the Pirates and teams like that, the old historic teams, good again. But it's very difficult based on the financial situation of baseball. That's all.
It is, and that's a topic we should hit on next time about
that's it.
The inequities. All right, Ted.
That's it. Thank you, James.
How much fun was that?
That's a good way to close it. That was good. When I said, well, that takes care of that. And Jim says, yeah, it does take care of that. And I was at the Padre game last night, and I stayed till the walk-off line drive, and happy as can be, and all those folks were happy. We'll talk more Padres, and it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of team they will be now and in the second half, because we're coming up to the All-Star break in the second half, and they have problems. There's no question about that. So we'll talk more about that. We didn't talk about it today. We'll do that next week. We thank you so much for being with us. I do want to mention before I get away here, I want to mention my hearing. My eyesight sucks. My hearing is worse because I'm, as Mark Twain said, I'm old, decrepit, and I'm falling apart. But everybody does it, and it happens to everyone. So if you're having those kind of problems, let me tell you, I struggled with my hearing so long, and tried some hearing aids, had some difficulties with them, and I never could quite get it done. But now I have gone. It's a company called Star Key in Minnesota that has made the latest and greatest to where you put a Star Key in your ear and think, oh my God, this is, compared to what I had, it's like I had a juice can on a string, and now I've got a symphony orchestra. It's unbelievable. I ain't selling anything. I'm just giving you a heads up that Jason, who runs this company now, first of all, it was Beltone La Mesa, which was a different company that I used, Beltone. Star Key's better, but it's still Beltone La Mesa at gmail.com. Beltone La Mesa, gmail.com. No obligation. Just take a look at there on the website. And even though I'm on the website, that should not scare the children. It will be okay. And get with him and get a consultation. I went 2 years. Huh? What? What? And when you don't hear these words, the brain checks out, doesn't know these words. And honestly, take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of your hearing. Remember, star key at beltonelamesa@gmail.com. For James Laslevik, number 54, as Howard Cosell used to say. And our producer, Joe Nelson, of Producer Joe and his own podcast. Uncle Teddy here with you.
Thanks, Ted. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it very much. See you next Wednesday.
All right. Take care.
You bet.